Welcome back to Earth Station Trek, a show where we trek from the early days on NBC to the future on Paramount Plus and everywhere in between. I'm Charles Kelso, and it's my privilege to introduce the Earth Station Trek crew: Keith Johnson,
Would you take a job where your boss has a freaking eject button?
Alan Seiler,
I forgot my quote. Hi.
well, Veronica's not with us tonight, so thank you for filling in for her for that.
Thank you.
And so tonight we're talking about Strange New Worlds, this is the season 4 episode Off Hour. But before we get into that, Alan, we have some news this week.
Yeah, a little bit of news, but it's kind of interesting. For the people who have been really clamoring, and there have been a lot of people clamoring for Paramount to do a series that picks up from the end of Picard season 3, where they were very clearly setting up for a new series with a new Enterprise, with Seven of Nine in command, and that whole crew that we saw. That series is happening. However, it's happening at IDW Comics.
Yeah.
And this new series is launching soon. It's supposed to be September 23rd. So that's about a month away. And this series picks up directly from the end of Picard. And this has Seven, who it's kind of an interesting little setup where she opens a book measuring herself against some of her previous, or not her previous captains, but her predecessors on the ship, like Captain April, Pike, Kirk, Garrett, and Picard. And from there, we launch into a whole new set of adventures with this crew. And I'm very excited about this. For one thing, it's a story that needs to be told because it was so clearly set up as something that should, and they wanted to happen. But the other thing is that the artwork on this series is by a guy called Dennis Menhier, and it is really interesting. It is unique comic book art. This guy has a style all his own. It's very, very different from anything that you may have seen, and he's also the colorist on the book, and he uses very bold, very stark colors. And with his art style and his coloring style, this is a really striking title. We've only really seen the cover and just a few examples from the interior art, but man, is it interesting. And I think it's going to tell an interesting story, but it's also going to be like a visual feast. So I'm very excited about this series. And a month from now, I will have the first issue in my hand.
Awesome. That sounds amazing.
And that is the news for this week.
And Keith, do we have some This Week in Trek this week?
I do. Got a couple of things here. I'm going to save one from earlier in time for the end for a reason, but let's go to the 23rd of August, 1966 was the submission of the first draft of one of my favorite episodes of the original series, The Conscience of the King, which is, it's about as Shakespearean as you can get. And for those who sometimes say there are those of us who are way too picky with Star Trek, that's a great episode, but it's got the famous scene you remember where Kirk goes in his quarters and there's a phaser up in like the freaking vent. And it's about to blow up. And it's kind of like, how do you sneak into the captain's quarter with a phaser, set it on overload, and get out? So, but it's a great, great, great episode. It's full of Shakespearean stuff. It's one of those first season episodes I tell people to watch when those who think Kirk was only a cliche, because there's some fantastic acting in that episode by William Shatner.
Yeah, totally.
Fantastic. Yeah. Then I'm going to jump forward 25 years, basically 1991. This has become one of those, who knew this was going to happen? The final draft was submitted for a TNG episode that starred a then up-and-coming Ashley Judd and Will Wheaton. And you know what I'm talking about, where people are getting really off on playing the game.
Right.
And that's become a famous one, especially the weird scenes where the people are acting, let's just say it looks like they're doing more than getting, their points in the game.
Okay, it's an enjoyable game.
Yeah, is it ever? Jump forward to back to 1964, the 28th of August. I found this interesting. The original story was written and submitted for A story about a young man who's found abandoned on the planet, who comes onto the Enterprise and seems to have strange mental powers, which actually became, of course, Charlie X. The
Mm.
original title submitted by the author was Charlie is God.
Okay.
And I can kind of see why the network didn't want to go with that title, although they have used God in titles in original series, Whom Gods Destroy. But Charlie is God sounds different.
Well, it does because they're putting a particular character in the place of God. And this
Right,
is the mid 60s we're talking
right,
about.
exactly. Yeah, that definitely ain't, that's not going to work.
Right.
Um, this and talk about the heady times. We've had that recently, I guess, with Star Trek production, and then back in the days of TNG movies, DS9, and Voyager. But this actually tripped me out. On the 29th of August, 1966, all this was happening. The original series episode, Miri, was being filmed. This is on this day. On that same day, the musical score for Charlie X was recorded. On that same day, the treatment for the alternative factor was submitted to Roddenberry and Company for approval. Also submitted on that same day was the first outline for Return of the Archons. And on that same day, the staff got the submission for an outline for an episode called Space Seed. One day in 1966, all that was going
Wow.
on.
Yeah, that's not surprising though. I mean, they were busy this time
Yeah,
60 years ago.
right. They actually said one of the guys, and I can't remember if it was Gene Kuhn, whoever, there was a thing where Gene Roddenberry, when he was writing a lot of the stories or editing a lot of the stories, was known to take a long time. He was late a lot. And one of his production guys actually got to the point where he'd go in the office and just stand there, and Gene would ignore him and keep writing or typing. Then the guy got to the point he literally started standing on Gene Roddenberry's desk to rush him. And Gene would just try to ignore him as much as possible. Last two, 29th of August, 1967 was the final day of filming of The Trouble with Tribbles. Not
Okay.
said. And
Good
then
one.
this one I found, my last thing here I found very interesting. I'm jumping back in time slightly of the month. 23rd of August, 1967. A writer named Darlene Hartman, with the support of Gene Kuhn, submitted a story she'd been working on to Gene Roddenberry and Company. First off, I find it very interesting. This is 1967, and this is yet another woman who is allowed to submit a story. So they were definitely progressive in a lot of ways on this show back then. Here's the outline of the story. Hartman's story dealt with the Enterprise finding a primitive civilization living in a Garden of Eden, which is controlled by a giant computer named Shoal, Shol, which the natives worship as a god. Shoal begins to absorb the Enterprise. Kirk and Spock have to destroy it. The natives are left without their god and have no concept of what to do from now on. That was not the outline for the Apple.
Yeah.
Another person, Max Ehrlich, was already working on the Apple, which went into production.
Yeah.
Amazing to me. However, Shoal was shelved. Gene Kuhn wanted to develop into a story. He gave her a teleplay, but then he left, and then John Meredith Lucas decided to shelve the thing. However, there was a couple of things from that story that she submitted that they decided to use. The main one of which she had introduced a new character who was going to be a doctor in Enterprise, Dr. Joseph Mbinga.
Mm.
And that's the
Nice.
main thing they pulled from that story and plugged him into the original series, a couple of times. And here he
Yeah.
is back all these years later.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's
Yeah.
great. I mean, to have your script not be produced, but then a character that you conceived of in some
Right.
capacity continuing on 60 years later is amazing.
Right. And I get, and actually you guys are both creatives, you both write and do stuff like that. And I guess the lesson always is always submit it and always try to get it to somebody, because you never know what's going to happen, even if it takes a long time.
And timing is huge because she obviously had a
Yeah.
good idea for a story because they did almost that same story, but someone else just had it in there first.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's this weekend Trek history.
Awesome. Well, you guys want to talk about off hour?
Sure.
I'm excited to talk about off hour.
Well, let me get some comments first.
Oh, right.
I know, sorry, but I want to get them done. Bill says hi. Michael Scott says, hey, everyone.
Hey, guys.
And we got a couple other ones. Tiger Blade 2002 says, hello, everyone. I never thought I'd be so happy to hear Technobabble again.
Yes,
Bill
Wayne.
says about the proposed episode title, Charlie is God, says, Sounds like a title that someone deeply on the spectrum might suggest not being aware of conventional thinking and societal norms.
Could be.
Possibly.
Could be. Or it could have been intended as shorthand for the production staff to know what the script was going to be about.
Yeah, it could just be a working title. And as we know, we're going to be talking about off hours, and that means we are going to be talking about spoilers. So I have to say that before I get this next comment, because Matt Sweatman says, Dr. Boyce, Scotty in a Jeffries tube, jettison pod button. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even more than that. So much more than just that.
Oh, yeah. So much more.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I freaking love this. I'll just lead with that. Like, I finished it this morning, and I was thinking, is this the best episode of the season or the best episode of the series? Because this is, I mean, the kind of adventure I want in Star Trek.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
Right.
and you could look at it as, oh, another gimmick. It's a disaster movie episode, but it's a gimmick or a conceit that works very well because it's a crew, right? Whether it's a crew in space or a crew at sea, a disaster is something that you have to contend with or prepare for the possibility for.
It is the perfect setting for an ensemble cast. You throw your crew into an impossible situation and you let them figure out how to get out of it. That is classic storytelling and it's classic Star Trek.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was thrilled by this. What did you guys think of it?
Go ahead, Keith.
I enjoyed it, and keeping with my habit of not even reading anything about an episode, I go in blind. When I saw the title, which I actually only saw today, even though you guys have read it, when it said off hours, I hate to say this, I was in that mood. I was like, oh man, there was that crazy comedy movie After Hours. I swear I thought this was going to be a comedy show because it said off hour.
I mean, that's not a bad guess with this show.
It is not unreasonable.
Yeah. And then they were kind of goofing around and joking at the beginning, but then, I absolutely thought it was really good. And it also proves the point. I've said this a billion times, which is so many people who don't like Strange New Worlds and the New Trek people, they go straight to their hacks. They can't write. They hate the series. I don't agree with any of that. We've all said a million times, what they want to do may not be what I always want to do. That doesn't make them bad. It doesn't even make them wrong. It just means they're different from what I would do. This shows that they can write something that works for me. And for those like Veronica who love the singing shows and stuff, they're just as good doing those shows as the show, even if I don't like them. And this shows not that they can do something quote unquote good, but they can do something that I respond to. And I think that's very important to keep in mind when we people critique the show. I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
Now, when you talk about the writing on this episode, this is a guy called Bill Wolkoff. And I don't know that name. Is this our first time seeing his name in the credits?
No, I know that he wrote the Shuttle to Confori last season. It's actually the same writer and director as the Klingon zombie episode.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Yes, it is. And I kind of liked that episode. I love this episode. He is also co-writer on next week's episode, which we'll talk about at the end of our show tonight. But so that's promising.
When it ended this morning, I looked at Veronica because we watched it early this morning, and I was like, did a Star Trek fan sneak into the production studio and slip a script into the pile? Like a Mission Impossible style?
Well, what that always also shows you, I've seen this on other shows, like you'll see a writer do one episode you love, and the same writer does another episode you hate. But then you got to think about it's not just that one person. It's the showrunners. It's the people who tweak it. It's the editors. It's the network. It's the director. So many things go into it. It's not always just, well, the writer wrote a horrible script or a script you didn't like.
Sure.
Yeah. I thought it was good, and I had a lot of comments about good acting. And I will say, this is a criticism I've never had against this show is how it looks. Because man, some of those shots of the Enterprise and the stuff it was going through were absolutely breathtakingly beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, it opens with the flyover.
Yeah.
With the camera panning under it, and that was a beautiful
There was
shot.
good camera work.
Yeah, and just the vibe of that opening shot had more of a Star Trek feel. Like,
Totally.
we're getting a Star Trek adventure this time. you
Right.
know?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Well, I enjoyed it. I'm going to say, and I was texting Chuck this morning because we both get up super early in the morning to watch it, and he's usually about a half an hour earlier than me, so I know it's safe to text him if I've got something that just needs to be said. and I was like, this is And okay, you're absolutely right that this is following the pattern of this season, where every episode is a very standard movie or television genre, and this week it's the disaster epic, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But that absolutely works for this kind of show.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do it. It's fine to do all these other things if you keep the emphasis on the Star Trek and not on the genre you're trying to pull in.
Absolutely.
And here, I 100% feel like that was what they did. They were very successful at keeping this Star Trek centric and putting this other element onto it. Because the other ones that we've had so far this season have been so on the nose. And next week's is going to be the same. And this one, it wasn't. It was just like we're using that template to tell a Star Trek story. And very successful. I have a couple of nitpicks, and we're going to get into those later. Yeah.
Same here.
But still, overall, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And, you know, to say that it's the best episode of the season, that's not hard to accomplish.
Yeah.
I've not been happy with this season so far.
Yeah. And I agree with you all saying again, because I've said this a billion times too, is they write the episodes they want to write, not what I think they should write. And again, that's an incredibly subjective statement. What does that mean? Everybody writes what they want to write. But I have also felt many times that what they want to write is more gimmicky than more what would be, I guess I'd say, true to the franchise, to what Star Trek is. And I felt this was more and more where they were a little more controlled and contained than what they were doing this week. Because when you mention, like, some will say it's a gimmick, one of my favorite episodes of TNG is Disaster. And that's when the Enterprise gets a quantum filament or a cosmic stream. That's where Worf had to birth Keiko's baby. The car is trapped in the elevator with the kids. Troy has to struggle with command against New Ro. Love that episode. And you're right. Yeah. As someone who grew up watching the Poseidon Adventure and stuff, absolutely sincere, John.
Because that episode splits the crew up and puts each main character in a situation that they are not normally in, and it throws them off their center, basically, to see how they react and whether they're going to come through or not. And that's what adds to the tension. And I don't think we really got that same kind of thing in this episode, but the Poseidon Adventure equivalent is absolutely there, and I think you're spot on with that one.
Yeah.
Let me get a couple of quick comments. Michael Scott says, I thought it was dramatic, serious, and compelling. Definitely the best episode of this season so far. The only nitpick is that too many characters had plot armor. And he also wonders, are we going to get a court-martial episode where Pike is put on trial for potentially killing Spock?
Well, I think if Spock hid in the bowels of the ship and faked his own death, then for sure. But since Spock turned up, I think he's okay.
And then Matt Sweatman says, this is the best episode, even though we know M'Benga is going to survive. And that's a point that I really want to get to. Because all the characters, and this is something that I saw Michael Scott comment on Facebook about also, and this leads, what I'm going to say kind of leads into another point that I want to make subsequently, but every character that is in direct potential fatal circumstances are M'Benga, Nurse Chapel, Scotty, Spock, and we all know that these characters are going to survive.
Right.
There's no consequence. You know, the tension here should be that we know we only have a certain number of episodes left in this series, and we know that there are some characters that are not going to make the crossover from this show into the original series, which is the bridge that we're going to be the gap we're going to be bridging. So put those characters in peril. I mean, we did have La'an, but we know that she's going to survive because she's the second one to go out on the hull. She's there to rescue Spock. We know that Spock's going to live. So, you know, there's a very good chance that La'an's going to make it through. So you didn't feel anything of consequence.
Yeah.
So that's I don't think only gripe.
Yeah, I don't think that's always to the show's detriment because I've said this before, but on the average Star Trek episode, I'm relatively sure all the characters are going to make it to the end. You know, it's more like, how are they going to get out of this one? But I did have the thought with M'Benga.
Right.
Yeah, I did have the thought with M'Benga that, because I've complained before that the actor is about 20 years older than the actor who played him in the original series. So it would have been a nice twist if they killed him And then we discover that he has a son who's in medical school, and maybe I'll serve on the Enterprise like my father one day. And like that would be a great twist.
That would be.
But I mean, I could see this leading to him leaving the show. You know, sort of the exit of M'Benga sort of started
100%.
here.
Yeah,
because he about got cut in half.
Right. And in this continuity as they portrayed it, has Dr. Boyce has never been on Pike's Enterprise, right?
Well, he's never been mentioned on the he's never been mentioned on the show up at this point. But in this episode, they said that he was the CMO previously.
Yeah, he had to be, right.
But now,
because it's
I didn't like this is one of my nitpicks, that Chapel said that he was the interim CMO until M'Benga was available. And I'm like, oh, no, he was not. Dr. Boyce was the chief medical officer.
Right. That didn't make any sense.
I'm just going to take that as that was her opinion. Or she was being very pro M'Benga in that moment, you know.
I agree with you because he had to be the doctor during the Telosian
during the cage.
He was there,
right?
Yeah, the cage. So he was there. Yeah, I agree with you. I think they still sometimes tweak things. I don't know why they feel they have to do that. I agree with you. The only thing I could think about what you were saying, Alan, was like Charles was saying. I was like, well, are they gonna? Is Bab's role on the series being reduced drastically because they only got basically a full season left for them between this and next season? And was Boyce gonna come back? And of course, I look at the guy like it's him, the soulless minions of orthodoxy from Deep Space Nine. It's like, reading about Brian Markinson, who played Dr. Boyce. Of course, you get the story from a lot of people. He auditioned for both Neelix and the Doctor in Voyager.
Wow.
Oh, interesting.
But what Star Trek has always been really, really good about is if you don't get a role, they keep you. They keep that name.
Sure,
and
he was in several Star Treks. That was the one I recognized him from, but also a Stargate that he was in, where he played this hologram on this ship that was like destroying a planet.
Great episode. Great episode.
Yeah. But he's really good. Now the portrayal of Boyce here is very different from what we got in the cage.
It is.
You know, she described him as he didn't get along with anybody on this other ship, and he came across. Now it was an emergency, but he came across as kind of severe. You know what I mean? Whereas the Boyce from the cage is mixing up martinis for the captain out of his med kit. You know what I mean?
The Boyce from
when's that going to show up?
That Boyce was literally the archetype for the old country doctor, or the that guy. Like you're right, because in that episode he said, "Who wants a warm martini?" Sometimes a man will tell his bartender things he won't tell his doctor. This guy was a crank, and even the way he told her to leave M'Benga behind. Look, I agree with you. I know it's an emergency, but the way he said it, I didn't like it personally.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it in that situation because he's triaging at that point.
Yeah,
right. He's like, I need the nurse here, and they're about to shut down the corridors. You're going to be stuck there with a dying patient. All we can do is make him comfortable and move on, right? And then M'Benga looked at the readings and was like, "Boyce is right." You know what I mean? Like, now maybe there was a nicer way to say it, but I don't think he was in pleasantries mode. He was a doctor talking to his nurse when the ship is falling apart. You know.
But I did like when she shot back and said, she said something to the effect of, is anybody you're treating about to die? It's like, well, no, but.
Yeah.
And I'm not even going to complain that they did the age is old, I can't hear you. You know, she might as well have done that.
I know. That was a little silly, but.
Yeah. But I did like his little bit at the end where he said, well, you got what you want. Good luck.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like he doesn't want M'Benga to die to get his job. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I do want to say, though, that I really enjoyed the performance. And even if you can say that the character was slightly different than what we've seen before, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was a really interesting take on the character. It was a great portrayal. And I hope that we see more of him this season and next season, because I really want to see more of that kind of personality and how there might be some clash between him and other crew members. I think that's going to be super interesting.
Yeah. And it sort of sets up how M'Benga might be on the ship in the original series, but not the chief medical officer. If Boyce came back as a number 2 instead of the chief medical officer, then M'Benga may do the same down the road.
Yeah, especially if recovering from his injuries is enough for, as you've mentioned before, Charles, maybe he's going to go back to that cloud and get his daughter back. So maybe he's going to.
For a minute, I thought the daughter cloud things, because it was in the previously on segment, and Veronica said, like, is his daughter going to save him?
Yeah.
I would have hated that so much.
Me too. I presume he's going to go off and invent a way to bolt the lab tables down so they don't slide around in an emergency.
I'm guessing that we're supposed to believe that table is far heavier than it looks.
Right. Yeah.
To split a guy in half.
Yeah.
Come on.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It slammed him for sure. Well, also gravity was being weird, and they're in a slipstream, and inertial dampeners were. I mean, you can propel something pretty fast with it if the inertial dampers are flickering, and the ship's going at warp.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I liked Boyce. I'm glad he's back. I'm glad that, because just a few weeks ago I was complaining that they still haven't mentioned Dr. Boyce on the show.
Right.
So I'm glad that they didn't forget about him. And I think they look at him as like, oh, that's a minor character who was in one episode that didn't even air at the time. It was part of a two-parter. But Dr. Boyce has been huge in like fan lore for years and years and years, because that scene sort of captured the imagination of fandom. You know what I mean? He's been in fanfics and books and comics and fan films, and there's a whole lore around those the Cage era crew.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and I'd like to see more of the Cage era crew, to your point, than the others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Michael Scott says, I thought the same thing as Charles. I thought M'Benga's daughter was coming back. Now, when I usually watch the episode twice on my Thursdays, once before work and once after I get home from work. So before work, I usually skip the credits and I'll skip the recap at the beginning because I just need to save time, because as soon as it's over, I got to get ready and go to work.
Right.
So without the setup, they're talking about the weird neutrinos, and Chapel is like, it's just like when you tried to save Rukia. And I'm like, who the hell is supposed to remember who Rukia is from 4 years ago? But they reminded you in the opening, and I just skipped over it.
Right.
Well, I was like, well, at least I remember who she is.
Yeah. And then there was another more obscure TOS character that came back in this episode. Did you guys catch it? Rada?
Yes, thank you. Yes. When I was texting you this morning, she was only in the very beginning of the episode, and so much stuff happened throughout the rest of the episode that I kind of forgot that she was there. But this episode did so much connect the dot. But that was a dot that I never ever thought that Strange New Worlds would connect, and we got Rada, and I was like, I can't believe this.
Yeah, and she appeared to be played by an woman of Indian descent, and not a white lady painted brown this time. So that's great. But I love that they're bringing back the minor characters like that, and I mean, Rada is a perfectly reasonable person to be on the ship, right? She was in
absolutely,
and and you mentioned the connecting the dots and the fan wank and stuff like that, but it was in a way I thought this week that made sense for the story that's being told. It didn't feel like it was shoehorned in, right?
Yeah.
I got excited when they mentioned the ion pod.
Yeah.
I know. I was like,
yeah, the ion pod has always been one of those things that nobody. First off, we never visualized it before. I don't know about the CGI enhanced version, and it's always been like, what the hell kind of pod, and what the heck? It doesn't make. At least they said here it's for when they into ship sensors. It's basically supposed to be catastrophic, because she said basically every sensor on the ship doesn't work. They got like this dedicated pod for some reason. I guess it's like a probe, and in this environment you can't send a probe out. So how many do you flip straw? Well, no, they said the duty person was up in the other episode.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, it seems like when you're in an ion storm is the idea, or here, but when his sensors are failing and you can extend this pod, and I guess it's unshielded and it collects radiation real fast, and then you got to jettison it before. I'll buy it. I don't care. I thought it was super fun. They mentioned ion pod, and I was like, the ion pod. And I was like, show the jettison button,
and they did.
I know.
Oh, you know man, I loved it.
I did not say it last week. I don't think I did, but in my notes last week when they were babbling about Pike's chair, I think I did say it. I was like, was there a jettison button on his chair? Because the original was like literally a big red button that you could hit accidentally, and here he had the little thing. So I thought that was. I agree with you. That was connections done right. I think when they feel natural, not gimmicky.
Yeah, because it's an established part of the ship, and they used it in a situation where they needed it, right? Like, I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of comments real quick. Matt says there was an uncomfortable comparison between M'Benga's incident and the real life fate of Anton Yelchin.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
I did not think about that, and I'm glad I didn't think about that. I wish you hadn't put that in my head.
Right.
And Bill says, what? Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts? No, not that Rada. This one is spelled RAHDA, and it's a officer on the bridge that we saw in one episode of the original series.
Yeah.
And never thought that we would see her in this show. Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was great.
Yep.
And we've talked a lot about Captain Pike this season, and I thought Pike had a really great moment in this episode where
one great moment,
but I'll take one great captainly moment. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because then she was like, we can't raise shields. The consoles are electrified. He's like, in that case, you have the con, and hit the button and got thrown back. And I was like, yeah, that's the captain right there.
And the joke used to be they found ways to tear William Shatner's shirt. I love that basically that burn on his chest. And also it really was like a true hero moment, because the way he went out, I didn't think we were going to see him again. And then he just like crawls back up off the floor and gets in the chair. And that absolutely reminds me like the time Kirk got stabbed in Journey to Babel, and he went on the bridge and he was, just doing the thing a captain's supposed to do. I agree. I thought that was cool.
And I didn't miss him in the other scenes. And that's something we've talked about like Cisco, for instance. There'll be whole episodes where Cisco has a scene, but it'd be an impactful scene, right? And I thought Pike had a really impactful scene there at the top, and then you focus on the rest of the crew the rest of the time. And I still felt like he's the captain,
Yeah.
Except that he's out of action for half the episode, and when he comes back, he's all like, "What are you talking about? I can't follow what you're saying. I don't know what's going on."
That's true.
I felt like they sidelined him again, even with him in the chair. They sidelined him,
right?
And I don't know what this show has against Captain Pike.
I agree, Alan. I think that goes back to my still feeling that a lot of the people running the show don't believe in what I consider to be the military structure. And I think they go through a lot of pains not having like this one central person in command. It's much more collaborative than I've seen, even though all the other shows are collaborative. Because I agree with you. It's weird. It's almost like they feel like there's too much focus on the commander, especially I think in this case, if it's a man, that it takes away from the others. And I think that's not true, because the other thing I wrote in my notes, again, this sounds like damning with faint praise, is I actually got more appreciation for the personalities and characters of a lot of those people in this show than I have gotten in all the shows where they're singing songs to each other and doing a bad Hallmark romance with each other. I got much more of Ortega's and how she acted. I got much more from Spock and how he was, and just the moment on went to save him, than I get from a whole bunch of episodes where they're breaking up and they're crying and they're body switching. And I thought you can get so much more character development this way than how they've done it the other way, except for you said maybe not Pike yet.
I will say, though, what they did in this episode, even though I don't like that Pike is literally thrown aside again, what they did was they basically took out the top three, because Spock is, after his space crawl, he's out for the rest of the episode. Una is out for most of the episode after she crushes her leg. So the whole thing is driven by the more junior officers, and that I really did appreciate.
I did too.
And this was very much a Scotty and Mbenga and Chapel episode, and I thought for that reason it was great.
And I like Ortega's.
Me too.
I like real quick. I like Ortega's, but again, she wasn't doing some of the kind of jokes that she's always making, because she was in a crisis and she was in charge. I love that characterization of these people more.
Yeah.
And she got to sit in the captain's chair for a little while.
Yeah.
Good for her.
And this is the episode where Scotty fell in love with the Enterprise.
Yes.
Because at first he was like, this ship's glitchy and blah, blah, blah. And, grew to respect and love the Enterprise over the course of the episode.
Yes. Now, that leads me to something. I need to talk about Pelia.
Okay.
This might be my favorite Pelia episode.
Okay.
Because sometimes they have her on because they're like, we have to have Carol on 4 times a season, or 5, or however many it is. What are we going to do with her? Well, we don't know. So we'll just make her the zany space hippie. And there's been a lot of times lately where her only job has been to deliver crazy dialogue. This time, she is very centered. She's focused. She is put back in that mentor role where she is talking Scotty through how to approach a problem. Even her moments of zaniness served the story, because she gets zany because she's either trying to distract him from his predicament, or she's trying to help him focus on the problem. I thought she was fantastic in this episode.
Yeah,
Absolutely loved her.
I liked her a little bit that life didn't give us lemons. We insisted on them because lemons were not naturally occurring. I thought that
was
was
going to
great.
be my line at the beginning,
Oh
my intro.
no! Okay, well I'm glad we got it in then.
It was something about lemons. I couldn't remember the wording.
Right.
That's reminiscent of Kirk always saying in the original series that man was meant to strive, to struggle. We was marched to the beat of the drums, not the whatever of the flute. So I agree, and I've said this. This has always been incredibly subjective. Is the leaning toward humor in the new franchise? A lot of times I don't hate it. I just don't like it. Again, it goes back to if they do a humor show or a dancing show or a singing show, it's not that it's bad. It just doesn't feed what I want. And so what you guys are saying, what you're saying, Alan, with Pelia, I like her much better here because she's lived for forever. So of course she's going to be a little quirky like Dax on DS9.
Yeah,
but I like the face that she showed here, and I loved it. I thought it was great for her.
Yes,
I did kind of go. They had to throw in the word miracle worker, but it's okay. It's like touching the glass. It was fine. But I would also give them credit for, like you're saying, doing some of the callbacks or connecting the things. Like just hanging in the Jeffries tube was kind of cool. The pod jettison was kind of cool. They really did kind of make the Enterprise kind of a living thing this week, a little more than we've seen it, I think.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
I wish that when Asha transported Scotty into the Jeffries tube, he was sort of midway in it into a fall and had to grab hold of the ladder. That would have been fun.
Yeah, and that's something I got to complain about too, is beaming into a Jeffries tube, because in Day of the Dove it was super dangerous to beam
intership beaming
ship. Yes, right. And now she beamed him onto a ladder in a Jeffries tube. Hands already holding the rungs
when she hasn't yet completed her transporter training.
Right.
And Pelly is like, just scoot the sliders up.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Okay. A few comments. Matt Sweatman says, I thought we were getting another episode where Pelia would be mentioned but not shown. Me too. I was so glad I was wrong. Her interactions with Scotty were very emotional. Michael Scott says, did anyone notice that this episode was a lot more gruesome than most? And Matt responded, yes, but there have been other gruesome bits this season as well. It certainly wasn't as gruesome as the haunted spaceship episode, but there were some moments that surprised me and made me really like cringe.
Yeah, I mean, in particular when Una's leg snapped.
Oh God!
Which I mean, I thought was a great illustration of like the forces that they're dealing with here, right? Yeah. It's not just she gets sucked to the floor or pushed to the floor, like her leg breaks. But then at the end, when Chapel's finger snapped off, and I was like, ugh!
Okay. She does the thing. She opens the door. It's going to get 400 degrees below zero in this room, and they're going to basically cryogenically freeze Mbenga. And yet, Chapel's exposed face and hair are perfectly fine, where he is like a popsicle.
Right.
What the ever-living
Didn't she have a thing on
part of her face? Her eyes and forehead and her hair were exposed.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God, that was so stupid.
Yeah.
I did make a little bit of a note on that sometimes I'm not really understand, and I don't know her, but I know of the lady who's their science consultant. I forget her name. Sometimes their science is off, because I agree. First off, the room went from like 72 degrees to absolute zero in 2 seconds. I mean, literally 2 seconds. And I agree, because if it's cold enough for her fingers to instantly freeze and fall off, she can't breathe, and anything exposed on her is going to turn to glass. And the Mylar blanket ain't doing nothing for her. So the science there made no. Also, Mbenga froze in like 2 seconds. That's impossible. Impossible. Because absolute zero is like minus 450 degrees. So they were close to absolute zero. So, but that didn't work. But I guess they don't have the science people sometimes.
Yeah, that didn't. I mean, I'll give that a pass. It's about like the environmental suits in Naked Time. That are just open at the bottom. You can reach up and scratch your nose.
You know what I did write my notes. Oh, go ahead, Alan.
It's like anytime you either use poison or an antidote in any drama, it happens instantly.
Right. So true.
Which is impossible.
One thing I put in my notes, and this is not a criticism of Strange New Worlds of the new writers, because this goes, like you said, Charles, this goes back to the original series. If I was on a spaceship, I don't care how advanced, I would have a freaking space suit in my quarters, on the bridge,
have it handy,
in sick bay, I would just have one, because if something goes wrong, then they're like, now what are we gonna do? But you know what I do give them credit for? We don't see enough. They played around with gravity, and I love it
Yeah.
when they play around with gravity, because it almost never fails on a starship.
Right.
And
And
I
you know,
love that.
that's another point that I really appreciated with Pelia, was that Scotty was all like, the damn ship glitched, and that's why we're in this situation, and blah blah blah, and it's unreliable and blah. And she goes, every ship glitches.
Mm-hmm.
You have to assume that this is a complex machine. It is going to glitch.
Right.
You have to be ready for a glitch.
Mm-hmm.
I loved that.
Yeah. And then when they were talking about, you know what happens when we break the warp threshold, it was not the only one who thought we'll turn into salamanders.
Yes, if only.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Okay. Matt Sweatman now chimes in by saying, I am not sure if this was deliberate, but seeing Spock ravaged by radiation reminded me of Wrath of Khan. Why you got to keep comparing things to traumatic situations that I don't want to think about? The Yelchin one was bad enough.
Yeah.
Anyway,
True.
I did not think about that at the time, actually.
Mm.
Did y'all want to take a break before we finish up, or no? Or
Sure, if you guys want to.
If you, yeah.
It's up to you guys. If you don't want to, I'm fine to keep going.
All right, we'll keep going.
Okay.
Because, well, Michael Scott says, all I could think of when the gravity went wonky was my own science fiction genetically modified heavy gravity world character was the perfect one for the job, and his equivalent Una in Trek.
Okay.
Yeah, Michael, there's been two heavy gravity worlds I can think of in science fiction. Kevin Sorbo's Dylan Hunt, also a character from Gene Roddenberry kind of in the Andromeda series, was half heavy gravity worlder. And there's a young lady, I forget her name. She was in the Orville. She was their first security chief. She was from a heavy gravity planet, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, and they went there one time and had to wear special suits.
Yes. Yeah. In the novels, the Bricard are from a heavy gravity planet also. I don't think that ever got I don't remember if it got talked about in Prodigy, but it was in the novels.
Right.
That would make sense.
Yeah. Matt says, I am so sorry about the Yelchin comparison. Yeah, it was not the best taste. Oh, I was only teasing you, but I didn't think about that. And oh man, that poor guy. That just
and I don't think that was always on the writers' minds when they.
Oh
One thing I wrote in my notes. I meant to open up with the way Alan didn't open the Heath. I remember the one line I did like was in Benga. Seems like one way or another, I will die today. I thought that was Eric Gallo's humor when he was, because I love it when Christine hid the scan from him.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, what did it say? It was a mistake. And then he's like, okay, let me see.
I loved Babs in this episode,
and
I usually do. I mean, I just think he's fantastic. I love this take on Mbenga.
Right.
But I really enjoyed him being put in that patient situation, and an impossible patient situation where he is certain, and by all rights, he should be dead. It gave Chapel a chance to save the day, not just the whole crew, but his life by coming up with a solution to save him. But I thought he was great in this episode.
Yeah, and their interaction was realistic, because I will say this a couple times. Well, not a couple times. Sometimes my wife and I've gotten into fights, and I say something. We're very respectful of each other. Like, we don't call each other names and stuff. But every now and then I will say something, and my wife will say, "You keep talking, I'm going to say something that's going to hurt your feelings." And and all these years, I've never had the nerve to push her to see what comes out. And I love to what you're saying, Alan, when Chapel and Bingo were arguing, they were real.
Yeah.
Because he said that to her, she's like, I could say a lot about you, a lot. And I was wondering what was going to go. And then the shit went to red alert, because that's how friends and family sometimes fight. Some stuff comes out. I love that.
I also liked, and I didn't the first time I saw it, but I did the second time. And that is when, coming in the second half of the episode, he vacillates between, I'm so glad you're here. Please don't leave me alone to die. And from that to, you should save yourself. Leave me here. I'm going to die. I'm a goner. You should save yourself. And he goes back and forth between those two positions, which I think if you were in that situation, you absolutely would. Those moments of of panic and facing your own demise and not wanting to face it by yourself would take over. But then at the same time, like the next minute, you're thinking, but this is a friend of mine. This is somebody I love, and I don't want them to die with me. She should save herself. And I thought that was so realistic. I loved it.
It reminds me of the Trek movies where Kirk always said he always knew that he would never die alone, or he thought he wouldn't. And I agree with you. I think dying alone, because those of us have even been sick alone, you know how it feels sometimes. So I thought that was really beautiful. I like the character interaction with them. I wish we had seen more character interactions with them over the years. Because they give so much.
Yeah,
and he's a really interesting, complex character. He's an assassin, but he's also a doctor. It's very interesting.
Yeah, there's been a lot about Mbenga I haven't really cared for on the show. I really didn't like his season 1 storyline where he had his daughter secreted away in the transporter, and then they resolved that super fast. And then all of a sudden in season 2, he was a secret Klingon assassin, and it's just kind of silly. But I have really liked his relationship with Chapel through the show, and I like that. I mean, I like that we got to see them together in the war, and then up till now, and so you really sort of buy their relationship. You know,
absolutely. Okay, Matt says the regulars were used very well this week: Mbenga, Chapel, Pelia, and Scotty. And then he says, I liked Pike's decisiveness in this episode. He didn't hesitate when he jettisoned the pod. Agreed.
Yeah. And I like what Ortega's. Yeah, and I like again with Ortega, she wasn't cracking a whole bunch of jokes, because when it happened with Spock, remember, she was real quick to say, we've got to jettison him, because then there was a countdown, like the neutrinos are going to turn the pod into a nuclear bomb in like 30 seconds. And I like the way Ortega's was real serious. She's like, you're going to have to jettison him. I thought that kind of worked.
Yeah.
I wish they had more time for the Ortega-Scotty relationship.
Me too.
And it could have grown more organically, like Bones and not Bones, but like Julian and Miles did.
Yes.
But instead, we got, I think, one mention this season that they don't like each other or don't get along, and then they went on shore leave adventure and became BFFs. And now every episode they have to mention that they're BFFs, but we don't see a lot of it. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Michael Scott poses an interesting question: what is Strange New World's unique POV? What does it uniquely bring to the franchise?
Michael, we've been talking about that every week. It's where my complaints come about, where they seem to be anti-military, and they seem to be much more focused on deep personal love stories with Spock and people, which is not what I want. But to your point, I don't know either. I know Akiva Goldsman said that what they are is genre is their exploration. And he has said that straight up in an interview. Genre is their explanation. So dance shows, music shows,
but
film noirs.
That's mostly this season, though.
Yeah.
And that's done a little bit of that in previous seasons.
Well, it sort of has built season by season from season 2 up to now.
Yes.
But I do think that's one thing they made a point of as Strange New Worlds has gone along, is like Star Trek, but in this genre, right? Star Trek, but in this genre,
right? And that's what Goldsman has wanted from the start. He always wanted that to be what he feels is the signature. I don't get it,
right? Yeah. Well, I think it's taking something that old Star Trek did and just sort of amplifying it, like turning it up to 11, right? Because you can certainly have like the Casablanca episode of Deep Space Nine, but they wouldn't go as far as putting it in black and white and that sort of thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. And here they sort of turn it up to 11. But I think also with Strange New Worlds, it's the most ensemble of any of the Star Trek shows. Where I think if someone just didn't know anything about Star Trek and came in and watched a random episode and had to pick out who is the main character, you probably get a lot of different answers. And I mean, one episode you probably would any Star Trek, but I mean. But even the old Star Treks that like with TNG, for instance, you'd have the Deanna episode, the Riker episode, etc. But I mean, there was still very much a focus on Picard and Data, you know?
Right.
Whereas this one, I think it's very much more like a flat ensemble where, I mean, Pike really isn't more of a presence, or, I mean, and maybe it's just because he's so collaborative a leader that you're right. He often comes off as indecisive. Yeah. And he doesn't often have those hero moments. That's why I sort of reacted very positively to this one. And last week, too, where he had some real hero moments, even though last week he was a puppet when it happened, but I'll take it.
And the dream.
Right. So, yeah, I think that those are sort of the unique things about Strange New Worlds. And I compared it last week to, like, Community, because Community was very similar in that it would be a different genre each week, oftentimes.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's probably what it is for me.
Cool.
I did think that there was a scene I reran 4 times, and it was the little moment when Spock was crawling toward the ion pod, and the special effects and just the look of it and the music and the angle they took was phenomenal. I mean, it was just phenomenal, and I rewound that scene and you can see the nacelle just behind them and all the energy for it. That stuff was good. That was.
Yeah,
and it was so nice to see Spock not in a dating game episode. So it was just so really good. I enjoyed it, and it even made sense when Leon went after him, and they didn't have to do the whole they used to date. None of that. Now I did raise an eyebrow, pun intended, when Spock mind melded with Leon, and I mean the whole thing of Spock when it was first introduced in Dagger of the Mind, where Spock was complaining to McCoy, he did not want to do it, and he said this is a deeply personal thing to the Vulcan people. I guess you really got to throw that out the window, because I mean it's almost like the way they're doing now. It's like you can say, Spock, I lost my keys, and he'll go, hold on a second, and he'll find it in your mind. I thought that was a little much. Much.
Now, I'd take a different angle on this. I thought that was a really interesting moment. And when you're talking about the crew being in a disaster situation and coming up with problem-solving things, I don't think it would ever have occurred to me to grab Spock's hand and initiate. Like, basically, she was the one that initiated the mind meld. I thought that was really kind of interesting.
Oh yeah, it was cool. I'm just being a little picky about it. It used to be it was, and I can't even say it was a rare thing in the original series, because after he got used to it, he was mind melded a lot. It just seemed like it was supposed to be more special in a few years from this time period, but it's fine.
But it may just be too because they were in a relationship that perhaps they've mind melded before. So I don't know that crewman Ralph could pick up Spock's hand and put it against his head and initiate a mind meld.
Right.
Crewman Ralph.
Yeah, it's just me. It seemed like it was a little bit more personal and private than.
No, I agree with you. Now I've complained about the way they handle that on this show already, because he's not even supposed to have mind melded with a human yet.
But guys, so much of what we talk about, so much of this is just subjectivity and how they handle something. Because I've seen episodes where they do something with like blood or green blood. I'm like, it felt gimmicky. When Spock coughed up some green blood, it made absolute sense given what had just happened to him.
Yeah. At first, when you could see the burns on his face through the helmet, and it looked like there was red blood, and I was like, they did not. Spock has green blood.
Right.
Yeah.
But they did not.
I had one quick question. What did you think about the split screen stuff they used a couple of times? Did that work for you, or was that overkill?
I love that. I thought that was really, really cool, especially when it's showing crewmen in different parts of the ship, and it kind of shows you that they are separated, but they are unified. They're working together, and I thought it was a really great use of that.
And I thought it made those scenes a little snappier. They're not going back and forth. It's all sort of happening at the same time.
100%.
You also see what a good director does for an episode, because the director is juggling a whole bunch of different scenes, a whole bunch of character subplots, and the camera comes in Uhura, and she feels like a communications officer in an emergency trying to contact people. It just worked. And as Alan, like you said, repeat what you said again, Pelia, just how they handled her is good. And a lot of times that's the director saying, let's do it like this, let's shoot it like this. Now, what did you think about Scotty patting the ship a couple of times, like he was like, I don't know, bonding with the Enterprise or something?
Yeah.
What'd you think?
Yeah, I don't mind that.
No.
Yeah.
I thought it was a little heavy-handed, but that's me.
This is the episode where we watched him sort of his love affair with the Enterprise begin, right? We know, and I mean, he even had said in Relics that he could tell what speed the ship is going by the feel of the deck plates.
Yeah,
Now I didn't imagine at that time that he was petting them, but
we
didn't say that he wasn't.
I didn't mind it at all. It was basically at the end of the episode, it was him having a moment of, because everybody was sure, and even he was sure, that the ship was going to be destroyed before it was able to get to the point where they could collect the special neutrinos. And then he had that moment of, it's going to be okay. And it was Pelia earlier that kind of brought him to that realization. And he says it's going to be okay. The ship is going to get us there. So at the end, that was his moment of thank you.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
What did you think of the chronometer countdown?
I liked it too.
And I didn't look at the runtime, but is this episode in real time?
Not strictly, no.
No, I don't think, because I think the chronometer was 45, 49. Well, you know, I don't know, because the episode...
It was close.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think the episode was 54 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
But that
It was
includes
55 something, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
so opening
it's
closing
almost,
credits,
but not
maybe.
quite.
It was very, very close.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's kind of like 24 in that respect then, because 24, that's sort of was their gimmick, but also the split screens they would do a lot too.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I did think about the 24. I mean, obviously the 24 comparison with the countdown on screen. I didn't think about the split screen thing being a 24 thing, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So this is its 24 episode.
There you go. 24, but also the Poseidon Adventure.
And Charles, you mentioned the gravity, and that's something going back to original series. It's not a criticism, because they can only do what they can do. Because, you know, how many times in any Star Trek episode have they gone to a ship and they've said there is literally zero power on the ship and they're just walking around because it has gravity? What I like about it, because you can't always show the stuff that would happen in real life, but if the gravity went down, they'd have to do all the filming of them floating. And so I love the effect that the gravity went the other direction, because it was much easier to show that brutal scene where Una's bones snapped because of the gravity in that part of the ship than having people float. And yeah, that was rough.
And they've played with gravity a few times in this era. With people floating or running up the walls and whatever the case may be. You know, they've done that sort of thing a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Enterprise, there was, what's his name? Travis Mayweather found the sweet spot. You remember that, Charles? I'm calling Charles.
Yes, I remember.
Wow. Matt Sweatman says, that is one thing this show occasionally or consistently does well, the visuals.
Yeah.
And Matt says, this was also Doctor Who's 42. Yeah, I can see that.
I don't know what that is.
It ain't worth knowing.
Yeah. And I took a couple of notes just for fun about the science, and they're just for fun. You can't capture neutrinos in the bottle, but you know, and I'm saying this for fun. In the episode of DS9, I really don't like, it was the one where probability went weird. They were babbling about spinning neutrinos. Neutrinos were orbiting in the wrong direction. That doesn't happen. And when the ship tilted,
how do you know?
Well, so far,
in the 24th century.
How many slipstream wormholes have you been in?
Thank you.
Right. And when the ship tilted, they shouldn't be trying to slide because the gravity plating is pulling straight down. So the ship could be technically on its side and they'd not know it. And I'm saying this for fun because they also shouldn't be flying out of their chairs in any Star Trek series that's ever existed. And I love the thing they've been doing for decades is inertial dampers are offline, and that covers everything. And I actually love it. I think it's funny.
Yeah. They mentioned in this episode that they were going to have the Bassard collectors upgraded with RAM scoops. I wonder if we're going to see more TOS style start to be incorporated into the ship.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Because this felt very much like a transitionary episode where you have
very much,
you know, leading up to the departure of Mbenga and Scotty becoming Scotty, and now they're maybe making modifications to the ship itself. And the ship was damaged, so it would make sense if we open next episode and they're in a starbase,
absolutely
receiving repairs.
So, and that's something that I wanted to talk about, and the earlier point about putting the characters that we know are going to survive in jeopardy. My thought during the first time that I watched this episode is that this one was a connect the dots episode. They brought in Boyce, they brought in the jettison pod, they brought in the whole thing about jettisoning the pod, they brought in Rada. They did all these things that put you in mind of that next series. And we know that we're going to get Sulu and Bones. And what I'm wondering is this the beginning of the transition? What if all of season 5, which is a 6-episode season, what if all of that happens after the crew changeover? What if La'an is gone by the end of this season? And what if Mbenga leaves the ship in the next episode? And what if they don't all carry over to the end of this season?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that would be interesting.
That. How is Dr. Piper going to come into this?
I wouldn't hold your breath for Mark Piper.
Because he has to be there. He was there before McCoy. which is weird to me.
There's a lot of things that have to be there that are not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I'm just interested to see how they're gonna. I would love it if it's not like all the characters end of season 5 and then next, the original series just picks up wherever it picks up. I would like to see the transitions, and I would like to see them happen at different times, and I would like each character that's gonna not carry over to get their moment. I want to see Ortegas get a great moment for her leaving, and I wouldn't be upset if somebody gets killed off.
Right. Well, I was going to say that based on we were on time. I know from what you said earlier, there's like 2 or 3 people who could die. And the only reason, like you said, the reason I knew La'an, if she's going to die, it's not going to die here because it's not dramatic enough and it wasn't written around her. You could lose Ortegas, you could lose Pelea, you could lose La'an because we've never heard of them before. So I don't know what's coming here, and that's interesting.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I mean, we mentioned before, like whether a character is going to die or not, and obviously M'Benga is not. But I mean, we don't know that he's not going to leave this, like you said, leave the ship in the next episode.
Yeah,
which would be, I mean, a major event for any Star Trek show for one of the main cast members to leave.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
yeah, totally.
I'm excited for Dr. Boyce. He even had his United Earth pin, which is a pin that looked kind of like the emblem on his medical scrubs in the cage.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. Now, it's an actor that I like, so I'm hopeful there'll be more of him.
That reminds me, I did see a comment on one of the forums earlier today that wondered if now that Chapel has requested a permanent position, are we now going to see her in medical blue?
Oh, that'd be cool.
Wouldn't it be cool?
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah. Charles, you mentioned
I'm into it.
Charles, you mentioned seeing more Boyce. He needs that black bag. Remember the black doctor's bag? And he like had evidently had martini mix in the bag.
Yeah.
The original.
The devil you put in that ice.
That's it.
Wow, that was a great, and I think that was the first scene shot for Star Trek back in the 60s. But that's a great iconic scene, and I would love to even one scene with Boyce and Pike.
Me too.
Sort of recreating that sort of thing. Not line for line, but I mean that's the Captain Pike Enterprise that I always imagined. Yeah. And it was those kind of scenes with Pike and Boyce. And so I hope that we can at least get one before the show's over.
I think that with Pike coming up to the fate that we know he's coming up to.
Yeah.
Which ties back to the original episode, the Talosian episode. I think having Boyce here to kind of bridge that gap, I think is a really cool element.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm excited for it. Yeah.
So
me too. Next week
go ahead.
Our special genre is soap opera in an episode called Like Chronotons Through the Hourglass.
I do like the title. I can't deny that. I think that's a funny title.
Is that the one where
I'm dreading this one.
Is it this series or Academy where Deidre Hall was going to show up?
No, it's next week.
That's Deidre Hall. Okay, from Days of Our Lives. Okay, got it. And Electro Woman and Dinah Girl. Okay, well, here we go again.
So we got one good Star Trek episode this season.
We'll always have off hour.
That's right.
Right.
That is right.
All right. Well, Alan, where can people find more of you?
CosmicCreative.com, where you can see stuff about my Doctor Who books that I put out this January, I guess it was, and my other podcasts, which includes Modern Musicology. And we record our next episode this Sunday night, and we have 2 special guests that are going to be joining us to do a special Dolly episode.
Okay.
I'm very excited to do that, and I can't wait for people. I mean, we haven't even recorded it yet, but I'm already excited for people to hear it. So,
And how about you, Keith?
You can find me on Facebook, primarily the ESO Network Facebook groups.
And for Veronica and I, check out Felt Nerdy across social media and on YouTube. And actually, this week we released something kind of special. I was inspired by watching the Puppet episode, and I went back because back during the pandemic, early post-pandemic, before all the conventions were back to in person, we filmed a couple of sort of routines for various Wholanta was one of them for Alan, and then for Treklanta. The Wholanta one's been on our YouTube for a while. The Treklanta one I've just sort of sat on because it's very much like our living room is a spaceship. You know what I mean? But So I never really considered releasing it widely. But then looking back at it, because this month is the 5-year anniversary of when that streamed. And it just put me in mind, like, no, that's actually kind of a special time in fandom history when we were like entertaining one another from our homes.
Yes.
And just getting creative with it. And so I decided to release it with an explanation of what it is. It's very much pandemic era or post-pandemic era, really. But I thought it was, this is kind of an artifact of that time. So I decided to just put it out there, warts and all. And we made it sort of just kind of quickly, just Veronica and myself, and in our house. And it's sort of excerpts from one of our shows called Bad Reboot. That's making fun of J.J. Abrams, and so that's always close to my heart.
And I will say that I think that one was first, and then I guess the following year I asked you to do one for my con.
I think they were the same year, but I don't remember. I could be wrong. I don't remember what date that was.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will say that the one that you did for Hulanta blew me away. I was so impressed with the production, with the scripting of the stitching together all these different vignettes. I was so surprised.
Well, thank you.
I thought, they could just, put up a puppet stage in their living room and that's it.
Right.
And I would have been totally happy with that. But what you gave was so much more than that. And I was just like, holy cow, I can't believe this.
Well, thank you. Well, all of that's on our YouTube channel at Felt Nerdy. So search for that and check it out. I think it's kind of fun. And then you can also find us at Monkeying Around. We go live Wednesday nights on YouTube talking about the monkeys. And we're not going to have one this next week because we're going to be doing Dragon Con prep. But the following week, we're going to have Derek Miner on to review Mickey Dolen's new EP. And that's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, nice.
Derek's also going to the Big Monkeys convention the same weekend that we're going to be at Dragon Con. So he's going to report on that for us. So you'll get a sort of a breakdown of that Monkeys convention. Even Chip Douglas is going to be there. So it's going to be...
wow. That's so cool.
It's a big deal. Yep.
Wow.
And then Earth Station Trek will be taking a break next week.
Yep.
We're in Dragon Con mode. So Veronica and I will already be loaded into Dragon Con and stuff. Our hotel room, I think, starts Wednesday.
Yeah, ours too.
Yeah, so we'll be back the following week, and we'll be doing 2 Strange New Worlds that week.
That's going to be hard to do.
It's going to be hard to do, but we have more time to watch, though.
That's a lot to talk about in one episode. Well, we've done it before, but
we might get so sick of talking to soap opera and that it might go real quick.
I don't think I'll spend a lot of time on that one.
Right. Unless it surprises us. It could surprise us.
It could surprise us. I'm open to that.
But then watch our YouTube, because I've still got 2 audio recordings that Keith and I did with the original, the Menagerie Captain Pike.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, when we were at Stellar Fest that I haven't released yet. And if I have time, I'm going to try to get them out there, because I think the anniversary week is a perfect time to do that.
Yes,
so I'll put the audio out on both the podcast and on our YouTube. But I'm also in Dragon Con mode, so if I don't have time, then I apologize. But I'm going to try.
Yep.
Okay.
Groovy.
And does anyone have a closing for us this week?
Oh, I didn't think of one.
Like chronotons through an hourglass.
Oh, that's for next week. Dun, 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 dun.
All right, y'all. Everybody have a great couple of weeks. And if you're going to go to Dragon Con, look for us there, because both Chuck and Veronica and I are very, very busy all weekend. So we'll be around.
But since we're not
see y'all again live in 2 weeks.
Yeah, put your responses in our Facebook group next week. Let us know what you think.
Mm-hmm.